everyone. So these are our notes for Exponent Properties, lesson 4.1. We are going to be able to simplify an expression using a single property of exponents and simplify an expression using multiple properties of exponents. So this will be my first video lesson for you guys, so feel free to give me some feedback. Let me know what you like or don't like, or what you would like to change. So first we're going to look at the product rule. So that tells us what it is right over here in the corner. The product rule says if we have x to the a times x to the b, that would equal x to the a plus b. So our steps for that are first to multiply the regular number, and that's our coefficient, or that number that's in front of the x. So in this example, it would just be a 1. That invisible 1 is there. And then we're going to use the product rule to simplify the exponents. And the product rule, like we just stated, tells us that we need to add the exponents together. So let's go over our first example to see how that would work. So here we have x squared times x cubed, or x to the second power times x to the third power. So first step is to multiply the regular numbers. Again, we have those invisible ones in front. So it would be x, and then, or 1x, and then we want to add the exponents. So 2 plus 3. And so we would get x to the 5th power. All right, let's try this next one over here to the right. We have a to the 9th power times a. Now, again, we have to remember for these as well that there is also an invisible one up here. So we can't forget about this. This doesn't just become a to the 9th, but we have to add in that extra 1, so it would be a to the 9th plus 1. And our final answer would be a to the 10th. All right, so our next ones here, these have coefficients, or the regular numbers in front, that are not just 1. So let's try that. 5x squared times 6x to the 4th. So if we multiply the regular numbers, we would get 5 times 6, right? Which gives us 30. And then we have x. We want to add those exponents. 2 plus 4. So 30x to the 6th. That is our answer for that one. All right, this next one, same thing, but instead of there being a little dot in between, we have these in parentheses. Still means to multiply. So we have 3 times 5. Those are our regular numbers there. And then if you want to use different color here to show you the different steps, then we have x and 6 plus 2. So 3 times 5 is 15, and 6 plus 2 is 8, so 15 times x to the 8th. That is our answer for this one. Alright, so as we scroll down here, these ones just get a little bit more difficult. We add in some more variables, so this time we have x and y. Remember, you can't combine x and y, you have to leave those separate. So we're going to multiply the x's and the y's separately here. So let's start with our regular numbers. I'm going to highlight them here. So we have 8 and -3 as our regular numbers here. So we have 8 times -3. Next, we can do the x's, x to the 4th and x to the 4th. So we would write x to the 4th plus 4. Next, we have y. So we would have y to the 2nd plus 9. And we can write our final answer here. 8 times -3 is -24, and we have x to the 8th and y to the 11th. And that is our final answer. Alright, take a second and pause this video and try the next one all on your own. And then watch this video again to see the answer and make sure you get the same thing. So I've just written out our regular numbers there, 2, -5, and 3. Then we need to remember that there's this invisible 1 up here. So we would get y, 1 plus 2 plus 3. So our final answer is 2 times -5 times 3, which is -30. Times x to the 6th. Very good, so that was our product rule. If you need to take a second and look back at that, you can, and we are going to go on to another rule, the power rule. So here's our power rule. X to the a, and then we're going to take that to the b. And when you do that, you multiply the exponents. So now we're multiplying it, and that's our power rule. So you raise the coefficient to the outer exponent first. Remember, our coefficient is that number that is in front. So we have an invisible 1 here. So we'd have 1 to the b. And then you would use the power rule to simplify the exponent. And that's where we are multiplying. All right, let's look at our first one here. X to the 2nd to the 5th. So if we're using our power rule, we would first take that 1 to the 5th, which is just 1, if we had this invisible 1 here. And then we would take the exponents and multiply them to get x to the 10th as our answer. All right, let's try this next one. Again, there's no coefficients here, so we don't have to worry about doing that, but if we did, we'd have to multiply those. So we would have c. Remember, you have that invisible 1 there. If you need to write it in the original problem, you can. So 1 times 3. And then we would have d to the 2nd times 3. So we get c to the 3rd times d to the 6th. All right, scroll down here. Let's go on to our next problem. So here we have a coefficient of 4, but this one is outside of the parentheses. Because it's outside, our exponent isn't going to apply to it. So we would just have -4. And now our exponent will apply to the things that are on the inside. So we would have m to the 1 times 3, and then n to the 4 times 3. So you would have -4 m to the 3rd times n to the 12th. All right, take a second and try this next one over here. Before we get into anything harder, pause the video, and then come back and check your answer. Okay, so we're going to start. For this one, we have this coefficient here of 2, right? So we're going to take 2 to the 5th, or 2 to the 1 times 5, and then multiply that by x to the 2 times 5, and then y. And again, remember we have that invisible 1, so 1 times 5. You could also put that here on that 2. And then we have 2 to the 5th times x to the 10th. Oh, we need to simplify. What is 2 to the 5th? 32. X to the 10th and y to the 5th. If you don't know what 2 to the 5th is, you can put it in your calculator. You would put a 2, and then you should have a little caret there, and then a 5. And that should give you 32. All right, let's go on to these ones. Getting a little bit more difficult as we go on. Same process is still going to apply. So we have x to the third times 3, y to the third times 3. We're going to multiply that by x, y squared. So let's go ahead and simplify this line here. We'd have x to the 9th and y to the 9th times x to the first and y to the second. Now we have x and y in both of these, right? But we're not taking a power to a power. We're going to go back and use our product rule for this one, right? Because this is a product, we're multiplying. So we would have x to the 9 plus 1 and y to the 9 plus 2 to give us x to the 10th times y to the 11th. So here we used both of the rules. We used both of them. All right, let's go on to our next problem here. A to the third. And we're going to multiply that by a to the second times 4 times b, remember there's that invisible 1, times 4. Then we can simplify that down, a to the third times a to the 8th times b to the 4th. Now we can combine these a's, right? We have to use the product rule. So this is the power rule. We're going to use the product rule for this. So a to the 3 plus 8 times b to the 4th, which equals a to the 11th times b to the 4th. All right, we're getting down to it. Okay, this one's a little bit longer. I need to write a bit smaller this time. So we're going to start with our coefficient of -2. Remember that has an invisible 1 for its power. I'm going to times that by the 2. Alright, I'm going to make a different color here. So a, again, invisible 1 times 2. And then we have b squared, again, times 2. So that's our first one. We can go ahead and simplify this down so we don't get confused on the other side. So -2 to the second. And then we would have a to the second, and then we would have b to the 4th. And let's go on to our next one. So again, it's still going to be multiplying. And then we have 3 and that invisible 1 times 2. And then we have a squared times 2. And then we have b to the invisible 1 times 2. And now let's simplify this side down. So we have 3 to the second, a to the 4th, and b to the second. All right, now you can see here again what we can combine, right? That's why I made them different colors. So we would have -2 squared, which is 4, times 3 squared, which is 9. Then we can combine those a's, right? A to this 2 plus 4 times b to the 4 plus 2. And 4 times 9, which is 36. A to the 6th and b to the 6th. If you have different colored pens, that can really be helpful, or highlighters to help you differentiate those letters. All right, let's try this next one. It has a fraction in it, but don't let that scare you away. So we have 6 to the 1 times 3. A to the 2 times 3, b to the 1 times 3. Let's go ahead and simplify this side down first. So 6 to the 3rd, a to the 6th, and b to the 3rd. All right, let's go to our next side. Times 1/3 squared times a, 1 times 2 times b to the 1 times 2 times c to the 1 times 2. And let's simplify this down. You could write 1/3 squared again, or you could simplify down 1/3 squared. I'm just going to write 1/3 squared, a squared, b squared, and c squared. All right, let's simplify this down now. So what is 6 cubed? If you don't know that, you can take your calculator. You can put 6 caret cubed, or you can do 6 times 6 times 6. And that would give us 216. Then you have 1/3 squared, which is just 1/3 times 1/3. So that is 1/9. And then we can combine our letters. So a to the 6 plus 2, b to the 3 plus 2. 216 times 1/9. You can do that in your calculator. It is 24. Times a to the 8th, b to the 5th. Oh, I forgot c. And c squared. Put it down there. There we go. All right, our final two. This one is pretty long, but you can do it. Let's work through it together. Let's start with our first set. Start just by looking at this. Break it down step by step. So we would have 3 to the 4th, or 3 to the 1 times 4. I'm going to cut out some steps here to show you if you can do this in your head, you can. You'd have x to the 3 times 4, which is x to the 12th. Y to the 1 times 4, which is y to the 4th. All right, let's go on to our next set then. We'll do this one. Times 7 squared. X to the 5 times 2, which is x to the 10th. Y to the 1 times 2, or y squared. And then we just have x squared and y squared at the end. Okay, let's simplify these down. 3 to the 4th times 7 squared. You would have x, and we can combine that with not 1, but 2 other ones. So 12 plus 10 plus 2 times y to the 4 plus 2 plus 2. And of course you can do this in your calculator, and you should get 3,969, and then x to the 24th and y to the 8th. All right, we have one final one here. Again, pause the video for this final problem. Try to do it on your own, and then continue to watch as I work it out to see if you get the correct answer. All right, did you get 24a to the 12th? If not, take a look at my steps and process. See where you maybe went wrong. Okay, I know that was a lot. That is it for today's notes. Go ahead and try these 4 problems on your own, and we will go over them together in class.